A Passage to India, Chapter 16. He waited in his cave a minute and lit a cigarette, so that he could remark on rejoining her, "I bolted in to get out of the draught," or something of the sort. When he returned, he found the guide alone, with his head on one side. He had heard a noise, he said, and then Aziz heard it too, the noise of a motor car. They were now on the outer shoulder of the Kawa Dole, and by scrambling 20 yards, they got a glimpse of the plain. A car was coming toward the hill down the Chandapur road, but they could not get a good view of it because the precipitous bastion curved at the top, so that the base was not easily seen, and the car disappeared as it came nearer. No doubt it would stop almost exactly beneath them, at the place where the Puka road degenerated into a path, and the elephant had turned to sidle into the hills. He ran back to tell the strange news to his guest. The guide explained that she had gone into a cave. Which cave? He indicated the group vaguely. "You should have kept her in sight. It was your duty," said Aziz severely. "Here are 12 caves at least. How am I to know which contains my guest? Which is the cave I was in myself?" The same vague gesture, and Aziz, looking again, could not even be sure he had returned to the same group. Caves appeared in every direction. It seemed their original sprawling place and the orifice were always the same size. He thought, "Merciful heavens, Miss Quested is lost," then pulled himself together and began to look for her calmly. "Shout," he commanded. When they had done this for a while, the guide explained that to shout is useless because a Marabar cave can hear no sound but its own. Aziz wiped his head, and sweat began to stream inside his clothes. The place was so confusing. It was partly a terrace, partly a zigzag, and full of grooves that led this way and that like snake tracks. He tried to go into every one, but he never knew where he had started. Caves got behind caves or confabulated in pairs, and some were at the entrance of a gully. "Come here," he called gently, and when the guide was in reach, he struck him in the face for a punishment. The man fled, and he was left alone. He thought, "This is the end of my career. My guest is lost." Then he discovered the simple and sufficient explanation of the mystery. Miss Quested wasn't lost. She had joined the people in the car, friends of hers, no doubt. Mr. Heaslop, perhaps. He had a sudden glimpse of her far down the gully, only a glimpse, but there she was quite plain, framed between rocks and speaking to another lady. He was so relieved that he did not think her conduct odd. Accustomed to sudden changes of plan, he supposed that she had run down the Kawa Dole impulsively in the hope of a little drive. He started back alone toward his camp and almost at once caught sight of something which had disquieted him very much a moment before. Miss Quested's field glasses. They were lying at the verge of a cave, halfway down an entrance tunnel. He tried to hang them over his shoulder, but the leather strap had broken, so he put them into his pocket instead. When he had gone a few steps, he thought she might have dropped something else, so he went back to look. But the previous difficulty reoccurred. He couldn't identify the cave. Down in the plain he heard the car starting. However, he couldn't catch a second glimpse of it. So he scrambled down the valley face of the hill toward Mrs. Moore, and here he was more successful. The color and confusion of his little camp soon appeared, and in the midst of it he saw an Englishman's topee, and beneath it, oh joy, smiled not Mr. Heaslop, but Fielding. "Fielding! Oh, I've so wanted you," he cried, dropping the Mr. for the first time. And his friend ran to meet him, all so pleasant and jolly, no dignity, shouting explanations and apologies about the train. Fielding had come in the newly arrived car, Miss Derrick's. The other lady was Miss Derrick. Chatter, chatter, all the servants leaving their cooking to listen, Excellent, Miss Derrick. She had met Fielding by chance at the post office and said, "Why haven't you gone to the Marabar?" Heard how he had missed the train, offered to run him there, and then another nice English lady. Where was she? Left with the car and chauffeur while Fielding found camp. Car couldn't get up. No, of course not. Hundreds of people must go down to escort Miss Derrick and show her the way. The elephant in person. Aziz, can I have a drink? Certainly not. He flew to get one. Mr. Fielding, called Mrs. Moore from her patch of shade. They had not spoken yet, because his arrival had coincided with the torrent from the hill. Good morning again, he cried, relieved to find all well. Mr. Fielding, have you seen Miss Quested? But I've only just arrived. Where is she? I do not know. Aziz, where have you put Miss Quested to? Aziz, who was returning with a drink in his hand, had to think for a moment. His heart was full of new happiness. The picnic, after a nasty shock or two, had developed into something beyond his dreams, for Fielding had not only come but brought an uninvited guest. Oh, she's all right, he said. She went down to see Miss Derrick. Well, here's luck. Chin chin. Here's luck, but chin chin I do refuse, laughed Fielding, who detested the phrase. Here's to India. Here's luck, and here's to England. Miss Derrick's chauffeur stopped the cavalcade which was started to escort his mistress up, and informed it that she had gone back with the other young lady to Chandapur. She had sent him to say so. She was driving herself. Oh, yes, that's quite likely, said Aziz. I knew they'd gone for a spin. Chandapur? The man's made a mistake, Fielding exclaimed. Oh, no, why? He was disappointed, but made light of it. No doubt the two young ladies were great friends. He would prefer to give breakfast to all four. Still, guests must do as they wish, or they become prisoners. He went away cheerfully to inspect the porridge and the ice. What's happened? Asked Fielding, who felt at once that something had gone queer. All the way out, Miss Derrick had chattered about the picnic, called it an unexpected treat, and said that she preferred Indians who didn't invite her to their entertainments to those who did it. Mrs. Moore sat swinging her foot and appeared sulky and stupid. She said, Miss Derrick is most unsatisfactory and restless, always in a hurry, always wanting something new. She will do anything in the world except go back to the Indian lady who pays her. Fielding, who didn't dislike Miss Derrick, replied, She wasn't in a hurry when I left her. There was no question of returning to Chandapur. It looks to me as if Miss Quested's in the hurry. Adela? She's never been in a hurry in her life, said the old lady sharply. I say it'll prove to be Miss Quested's wish. In fact, I know it is, persisted the schoolmaster. He was annoyed chiefly with himself. He had begun by missing a train, a sin he was never guilty of, and now that he did arrive, it was to upset Aziz's arrangements for the second time. He wanted someone to share the blame, and frowned at Mrs. Moore rather magisterially. Aziz is a charming fellow, he announced. I know, she answered with a yawn. He has taken endless trouble to make a success of our picnic. They knew one another very little, and felt rather awkward at being drawn together by an Indian. The racial problem can take subtle forms. In their case, it had introduced a sort of jealousy, a mutual suspicion. He tried to goad her enthusiasm. She scarcely spoke. Aziz fetched them to breakfast. It is quite natural about Miss Quested, he remarked, for he had been working the incident a little in his mind to get rid of its roughness. We were having an interesting talk with our guide. Then the car was seen, so she decided to go down to her friend. Incurably inaccurate, he always thought that this was what had occurred. He was inaccurate because he was sensitive. He did not like to remember Miss Quested's remark about polygamy, because it was unworthy of a guest. So he put it from his mind. and with it the knowledge that he had bolted into a cave to get away from her. He was inaccurate because he desired to honor her, and, facts being entangled, he had to arrange them in her vicinity, as one tidies the ground after extracting a weed. Before breakfast was over, he had told a good many lies. She ran to her friend, I to mine. He went on smiling. And now I am with my friends, and they are with me and each other, which is happiness. Loving them both, he expected them to love each other. They didn't want to. Fielding thought, with hostility, I knew these women would make trouble, and Mrs. Moore thought, this man, having missed the train, tries to blame us. But her thoughts were feeble. Since her faintness in the cave, she was sunk in apathy and cynicism. The wonderful India of her opening weeks, with its cool nights and acceptable hints of infinity, had vanished. And we'll pause here, and we'll finish this chapter in the next video, Lord willing. Thank you so much for watching. I love you guys. As Tigger says, ta-ta for now.